Think your modern medicine cabinet is impressive? Vikings were using nature's pharmacy over 1,000 years ago, and their prescriptions came straight from the forest floor. While we rushed to pharmacies for antibiotics and immune boosters, these Norse warriors were harvesting mushrooms that modern science now proves can fight infections, boost immunity, and even help heal wounds faster than many synthetic drugs. Today, we're discovering 12 powerful mushrooms that kept Viking communities healthy through brutal winters and bloody battles without a single pill bottle in sight. Get ready to discover why these ancient medicines might be exactly what your modern life is missing. Chaga, in Onotus obliquus, the king of immunity. The Vikings called it the gift from the gods, and modern research shows they weren't exaggerating. Chaga mushrooms, those black, crusty growths you'll find on birch trees, were the Vikings' go-to immune system booster. Picture having a natural pharmacy that could prevent illness before it started. That's exactly what Chaga provided for Norse communities. Vikings would harvest these charcoal-looking fungi during winter months when the birch trees were dormant, believing this timing concentrated the mushroom's power. They'd carefully scrape the exterior sclerotium, that hard black outer layer, and break it into chunks for brewing. The process was almost ritualistic, with experienced foragers teaching younger community members to identify the difference between true chaga and similar-looking tree burls that had no medicinal value. The brewing process itself was an art form. Vikings would simmer chaga chunks in iron cauldrons for hours, creating a dark, bitter tea that tasted like coffee mixed with earth and bark. They'd often add honey or birch syrup to make it more palatable, especially for children and elderly community members who needed the immune support most. The tea would be consumed daily during harsh winter months, when illness could devastate isolated communities. Modern science has validated their wisdom in remarkable ways. Chaga contains more antioxidants than blueberries, goji berries, and dark chocolate combined. It's like having a supercharged immune system that can fight off infections before they take hold. Research shows chaga contains betulinic acid, derived from its birch tree host, melanin compounds, and polysaccharides that significantly boost immune function and may even have anti-cancer properties. Today, you can find chaga growing on birch trees throughout northern climates, or purchase it as powder or chunks online. Brew it like the Vikings did. Simmer chunks in hot water for 15 to 20 minutes, and you'll have an immune-boosting drink that's been battle-tested for over a millennium. Birch polypore, Fomitopsis betulina, the wound healer. When a Viking warrior took a sword cut or arrow wound, they didn't reach for bandages. They reached for birch polypore. This bracket fungus, growing like shelves on dying birch trees, was their antiseptic, and bandage rolled into one. It's like having a natural first aid kit growing right on the trees around you. The Vikings developed sophisticated techniques for preparing birch polypore for medical use. Fresh mushrooms would be sliced paper thin using sharp knives, creating flexible sheets that could conform to wound shapes. For deeper wounds, they'd pound the mushroom flesh into a pulp, mixing it with animal fat or honey to create healing salves. Dried polypore could be ground into powder and stored in leather pouches, ready for emergency use during raids or long voyages. Viking healers understood that different parts of the mushroom served different purposes. The outer layer provided the best antiseptic properties, while the inner flesh was most effective for stopping bleeding. They'd often layer treatments, first applying powdered polypore to stop bleeding, then covering with thin slices for ongoing antiseptic protection, and finally wrapping with cloth or leather to secure the natural bandage. Archaeological evidence shows birch polypore was so valued that people carried it with them across vast distances. Even Ötzi the Iceman had some in his pack 5,300 years ago. Viking burial sites frequently contained processed polypore, suggesting it was considered essential for the afterlife journey. The mushroom's preservation qualities meant it could last for years without losing effectiveness. Modern research confirms what Vikings knew instinctively. Birch polypore contains compounds like polyporinic acid that fight bacteria and promote healing. Studies show it's effective against both gram-positive and gram-negative bacteria, making it a broad-spectrum natural antibiotic. You can still find these mushrooms on birch trees today, and they work just as effectively as they did 1,000 years ago for minor cuts and scrapes. Enjoying raiding the past with us? Then consider using YouTube's new feature and hype this video. It really helps a small channel like mine get more views and allows me to create more content. To hype the video on your mobile device, swipe left on the comment preview carousel until the option to hype the video surfaces, or tap, and the carousel will change to show the option to hype. Your support helps a ton. Fly agaric, Amanita muscaria, the berserker's secret. The iconic red mushroom with white spots wasn't just decoration in Viking culture, it was their pathway to legendary berserker rage. While we can't recommend recreational use, understanding how Vikings used Amanita muscaria reveals their sophisticated knowledge of psychoactive compounds. It's like they had access to a natural performance enhancer that could transform ordinary warriors into legendary fighters. Vikings developed elaborate preparation rituals for fly agaric that reduced its toxicity while preserving psychoactive effects. They'd carefully dry the mushrooms near fires, often for weeks, allowing harmful ibotenic acid to convert to the less toxic muscimol. Some accounts describe Vikings feeding the mushrooms to reindeer first, then drinking the animal's urine, a practice that further concentrated the active compounds while reducing dangerous side effects. The dosing was critical, and closely guarded knowledge passed down through berserker lineages. Too little produced no effect. Too much could be fatal. Experienced berserkers would consume small amounts before battle, entering trance-like states that made them fearless and seemingly impervious to pain. They'd foam at the mouth, howl like wild animals, and fight with supernatural strength and endurance that terrified enemies. These mushroom-induced states weren't just random violence, they were controlled ritualistic transformations. Berserkers would prepare mentally and spiritually before consuming fly agaric, often fasting and meditating to enhance the mushroom's effects. The transformation was temporary but profound, allowing ordinary men to become legendary warriors whose reputation alone could win battles. Modern science has identified the active compounds, muscimol and ibotenic acid, that create these altered states. Research shows muscimol affects GABA receptors in the brain, producing effects similar to alcohol, but with enhanced physical performance and reduced pain sensitivity. While we don't recommend following Viking practices with this particular mushroom, their understanding of its effects shows remarkable sophistication in natural pharmacology that predates modern chemistry by centuries. Oyster mushrooms, Pleurotus austriatus, the protein provider. When hunting was poor and crops failed, Vikings turned to oyster mushrooms as a reliable protein source. These shelf-like fungi, growing on dead and dying trees, provided essential amino acids that kept Viking communities fed during harsh winters. It's like having a renewable meat substitute that grows year-round, even in freezing temperatures. Vikings developed systematic approaches to oyster mushroom harvesting that ensured sustainable yields. They'd mark productive trees and return to them seasonally, knowing that oyster mushrooms would fruit multiple times per year under the right conditions. Experienced foragers could predict mushroom flushes based on weather patterns, temperature changes, and moon phases, knowledge that meant the difference between feast and famine. The preparation methods were diverse and creative. Fresh oyster mushrooms would be cooked immediately in stews and broths, their meaty texture making them satisfying substitutes for scarce animal protein. For preservation, Vikings would dry them on wooden racks near fires, creating lightweight, nutrient-dense food perfect for long voyages. Dried oyster mushrooms could be rehydrated in soups or ground into protein-rich flour for making flatbreads. Viking cooks discovered that oyster mushrooms absorbed flavors beautifully, making them perfect for stretching precious seasonings and fats. They'd cook them with wild onions, herbs, and whatever animal fat was available, creating hearty meals that satisfied both hunger and nutritional needs. The mushroom's natural umami flavor enhanced other foods, making simple grain porridges more palatable and satisfying. Modern nutritional analysis shows oyster mushrooms contain all essential amino acids, making them a complete protein source comparable to meat. They are also rich in B vitamins, particularly B12, rare in plant foods, and minerals like selenium and potassium that would have been crucial for Viking health. Today, you can forage wild oyster mushrooms or easily grow them at home. They're one of the most beginner-friendly mushrooms to cultivate and can produce pounds of protein-rich food from simple substrates. Honey mushrooms, Armillaria millea, the parasite fighter. Vikings discovered that honey mushrooms weren't just food, they were medicine for internal parasites that plagued medieval communities. These golden, clustering mushrooms growing on tree stumps provided both nutrition and natural deworming compounds. It's like having a delicious meal that also cleans out your digestive system. Parasitic infections were a constant threat in Viking communities, where close quarters, poor sanitation, and consumption of undercooked meat created ideal conditions for intestinal worms. Viking healers observed that people who regularly consumed honey mushrooms seemed to suffer fewer parasitic infections and recovered more quickly when they did become infected. This led to the development of specific honey mushroom treatments for parasitic ailments. The preparation methods were carefully refined over generations. Viking healers would harvest young honey mushrooms when their anti-parasitic compounds were most concentrated, then prepare them as strong broths that patients would consume over several days. They'd often combine honey mushrooms with other anti-parasitic herbs like wormwood and tansy, creating powerful treatments that addressed multiple types of internal parasites. Timing was crucial for both harvesting and treatment. Honey mushrooms were collected during specific seasons when their bioactive compounds peaked, then dried and stored for year-round use. Treatments were typically administered during new moon phases, following ancient beliefs about parasite life cycles that modern science has partially validated. The mushroom's natural compounds disrupted parasite reproduction while providing essential nutrients to help the body recover. Modern research has identified several bioactive compounds in honey mushrooms that do indeed have anti-parasitic properties, including armillarin and other sesquiterpenes that interfere with parasite metabolism. Studies show these compounds are effective against various intestinal worms and other parasites. While we have synthetic alternatives today, the Viking approach of using food as medicine shows remarkable understanding of how nutrition and healing intersect. You can still find honey mushrooms growing on hardwood stumps throughout temperate forests, though proper identification is crucial, as some armillaria species can cause digestive upset if not prepared correctly. Porcini, Boletus edulis, the strength builder. Vikings prized porcini mushrooms not just for their rich, nutty flavor, but for their ability to build physical strength and endurance. These meaty mushrooms, found under pine and oak trees, were considered essential food for warriors preparing for raids or long voyages. It's like having a natural performance food that actually tastes incredible. The relationship between Vikings and porcini went beyond simple foraging. It was almost spiritual. Warriors would venture into deep forests during late summer and early fall, competing to find the largest, most perfect specimens. These mushroom hunting expeditions served multiple purposes. They provided valuable food, offered training in forest navigation and stealth, and created bonding experiences among warrior bands who would soon face battle together. Viking preparation methods maximized both flavor and nutritional benefits. Fresh porcini would be sliced thick and roasted over open fires, concentrating their earthy flavors and creating satisfying, meat-like textures. For preservation, they'd slice them thin and dry them on wooden racks, creating lightweight provisions that could sustain warriors through demanding physical challenges. Dried porcini could be ground into powder and added to porridges, instantly transforming simple grains into strength-building meals. The mushrooms held special significance in pre-battle rituals. Warriors would consume porcini-rich feasts before major raids, believing the mushrooms transferred the strength and endurance of the ancient forests where they grew. These ceremonial meals weren't just about nutrition. They were psychological preparation that connected warriors to the natural world and their ancestral traditions. Modern nutritional science validates Viking intuition about porcini's strength-building properties. These mushrooms are packed with high-quality protein, containing all essential amino acids, B vitamins that support energy metabolism, and minerals like selenium, potassium, and phosphorus that are crucial for muscle function. They also contain ergothioneine, a powerful antioxidant that may help reduce exercise-induced inflammation and support recovery. Today's athletes are rediscovering what Vikings knew, that porcini mushrooms are genuine natural performance food that can enhance both strength and endurance. Chanterelles, Chanterelles siberius, the vision protector. Viking scouts and navigators relied on chanterelles not just as delicious food, but as medicine for maintaining sharp eyesight during long sea voyages. These golden, trumpet-shaped mushrooms were believed to keep eyes clear and vision sharp, crucial abilities for warriors who needed to spot enemies or navigate by stars. It's like having a natural vision enhancement system growing wild in every forest. The connection between chanterelles and vision was discovered through careful observation over generations. Viking navigators, who spent months at sea relying on celestial navigation, noticed that those who regularly consumed chanterelles before voyages maintained better night vision and suffered less from the eye strain that plagued long-distance sailors. This led to chanterelles becoming standard provisions on Viking longships, especially for navigators and lookouts whose sharp vision could mean the difference between successful raids and disaster. Harvesting chanterelles required specialized knowledge passed down through families of foragers. Vikings learned to identify the subtle differences between true chanterelles and potentially dangerous lookalikes, understanding that the real chanterelles had distinctive false gills and a fruity, apricot-like aroma. They'd harvest them during summer months when the mushroom's carotenoid content was highest, often returning to the same productive spots year after year. Preservation techniques were sophisticated and varied. Fresh chanterelles would be cooked immediately in butter or animal fat, their delicate flavor making them prized additions to special meals. For long-term storage, Vikings would dry them carefully to preserve their vision-supporting compounds, or preserve them in salt, a precious commodity that was reserved for the most valuable foods. Dried chanterelles could be rehydrated in stews or ground into powder for adding to other dishes. Modern research validates the Vikings' observations about chanterelles and eye health. These mushrooms are exceptionally rich in beta-carotene and other carotenoids like lutein and zeaxanthin that support retinal health and may help prevent age-related vision problems. They contain more vitamin A precursors than carrots, making them genuine vision-supporting food. The Vikings' observation about improved night vision was remarkably accurate. Chanterelles really do contain compounds that help maintain healthy vision and may enhance low-light visual performance. Reishi, Ganoderma lucidum, the longevity mushroom. While more common in Asian cultures, archaeological evidence suggests Vikings encountered and used reishi mushrooms, particularly through their extensive eastern trading routes that reached as far as Constantinople and beyond. They called them mushrooms of immortality and reserved them for chieftains and important healers. It's like having access to a natural anti-aging compound that could extend both lifespan and health span. The Vikings' encounter with reishi likely came through trade relationships with Slavic peoples and Byzantine merchants who understood the mushroom's value. These glossy, woody mushrooms were so prized that they became part of diplomatic gifts and trade negotiations. Viking chieftains would offer reishi to honored guests and allies, understanding that the gift represented wishes for long life and continued strength. Preparation methods were adapted from Eastern traditions, but modified for Viking preferences and available ingredients. Viking healers would prepare reishi as bitter teas or tinctures, often combining them with honey, birch syrup, or fermented beverages to mask the intense, woody flavor. They developed slow brewing techniques that extracted maximum beneficial compounds, sometimes simmering reishi for entire days to create concentrated medicinal preparations. The mushroom's distinctive appearance, glossy, reddish-brown with a varnish-like surface, made it easily recognizable and highly valued. Vikings would often display dried reishi mushrooms as symbols of wisdom and longevity, incorporating them into ceremonial objects and burial goods. The mushroom's natural preservation qualities meant they could last for years without losing potency, making them perfect for long-distance trade. Modern science has extensively studied reishi's longevity benefits, finding triterpenes, polysaccharides, and other compounds that support liver function, boost immunity, reduce inflammation, and may even extend lifespan through various cellular mechanisms. The Vikings' reverence for this mushroom as a longevity enhancer aligns perfectly with current research showing reishi's anti-aging properties, including its ability to support healthy aging at the cellular level. Today, reishi supplements are among the most popular functional mushrooms worldwide, validating ancient Viking wisdom about this remarkable fungus. Turkey tail, Tremites versicolor, the infection fighter. Vikings used turkey tail mushrooms as their primary weapon against infections and diseases that could devastate entire communities. These colorful, fan-shaped fungi growing on dead logs were prepared as teas and broths to boost immunity and fight off illness. It's like having a natural antibiotic that grows abundantly in every forest and never loses its effectiveness. The discovery of turkey tail's medicinal properties likely came from observing animals. Vikings noticed that sick animals would seek out and consume these mushrooms, often recovering more quickly than expected. This led to systematic experimentation with turkey tail as human medicine, eventually developing sophisticated preparation methods that maximized its immune-boosting properties. Viking healers would harvest turkey tail year-round, as these hardy mushrooms persist through winter and can be found in various stages of development. They learned to identify the optimal harvesting time when the mushroom's immune-supporting compounds were most concentrated, typically when the mushrooms were young and the colors were most vibrant. Different colored zones of the mushroom were believed to have different medicinal properties. The preparation process was both art and science. Healers would create strong decoctions by simmering turkey tail mushrooms for hours, often combining them with other medicinal plants like elderberry, rose hips, and pine needles to create powerful immune-boosting formulas. These preparations would be administered at the first signs of illness, or given preventively to vulnerable community members during epidemic outbreaks. Communities that regularly consumed turkey tail seemed to suffer fewer epidemic diseases that plagued medieval Europe. Viking settlements with knowledgeable healers who understood turkey tail's properties often survived plague outbreaks that devastated neighboring communities. This led to turkey tail becoming one of the most traded medicinal substances in Viking commerce. Modern research has validated the Vikings' use of turkey tail as an immune booster in remarkable ways. The mushroom contains powerful polysaccharides, particularly PSK and PSP, that enhance immune function and help the body fight infections. It's currently being studied as a complementary cancer treatment, with clinical trials showing significant immune system benefits. This research demonstrates that Viking medicine was far more sophisticated than previously understood, with their empirical observations matching modern scientific findings. Lion's mane, Hericium erinaceus, the mind sharpener. Viking skalds, storytellers, and strategists prized lion's mane mushrooms for their ability to enhance memory and mental clarity. These white, shaggy mushrooms growing on hardwood trees were considered brain food that could improve storytelling ability and strategic thinking. It's like having a natural nootropic that enhances cognitive function while providing delicious, satisfying nutrition. The connection between lion's mane and mental performance was discovered through the oral tradition culture that defined Viking society. Skalds, who could memorize and recite thousands of lines of poetry, genealogies, and historical accounts, were essential to preserving Viking culture. These master storytellers noticed that consuming lion's mane, mushrooms, seemed to improve their memory, focus, and ability to weave complex narratives that could hold audiences spellbound for hours. Viking preparation methods were designed to maximize both flavor and cognitive benefits. Fresh lion's mane would be cooked slowly in animal fat, creating a dish with a texture remarkably similar to seafood, particularly crab or lobster. This made it a prized delicacy that was often served at important feasts and ceremonies. For preservation, they'd dry the mushrooms carefully, maintaining their beneficial compounds while creating lightweight provisions for long journeys. Strategic applications went beyond storytelling. Viking military leaders and ship captains would consume lion's mane before important battles or navigation challenges, believing it sharpened their tactical thinking and decision-making abilities. The mushroom became associated with wisdom and leadership, often incorporated into coming-of-age ceremonies for young people preparing to take on adult responsibilities. The mushroom's unique appearance, resembling a white waterfall or icicles hanging from trees, made it easily identifiable and added to its mystical reputation. Vikings believed that lion's mane absorbed the wisdom of the ancient trees where it grew, transferring that knowledge to those who consumed it. This spiritual connection enhanced the mushroom's perceived effectiveness and made it a central part of intellectual and spiritual practices. Modern neuroscience research shows lion's mane contains hericinones and erinacines, compounds that stimulate nerve growth factor, NGF, production, potentially improving cognitive function and memory. Studies suggest it may help prevent age-related cognitive decline, support recovery from brain injuries, and enhance overall mental performance. The Vikings' use of lion's mane as brain food aligns perfectly with current scientific understanding of its neuroprotective and cognitive-enhancing properties. Wood ear, Auricularia auricula judaeus, the blood cleanser. Vikings used wood ear mushrooms, those dark gelatinous fungi growing on elder trees, as medicine for blood-related ailments and circulation problems. These unusual-looking mushrooms were prepared in broths and stews to clean the blood and improve overall vitality. It's like having a natural blood thinner and circulation enhancer growing right on common trees throughout the landscape. The medicinal use of wood ear mushrooms developed from Viking observations of seasonal health patterns. They noticed that people who consumed these mushrooms regularly during winter months seemed to maintain better energy levels and suffered less from the fatigue and weakness that plagued many during the dark, cold months. This led to wood ear becoming a standard component of winter health regimens. Viking healers developed specific diagnostic methods for determining when wood ear treatment was needed. They looked for signs of what they called thick blood, symptoms we now recognize as poor circulation, including cold hands and feet, fatigue, and slow healing of minor wounds. Wood ear mushrooms were prescribed as both treatment and prevention for these conditions. Preparation methods were carefully refined to maximize medicinal benefits. Vikings would harvest wood ear mushrooms year-round, as they persist through winter and can be rehydrated when dried. They'd prepare them in rich, slow-cooked broths, often combining them with iron-rich herbs and other blood-supporting plants. The mushroom's gelatinous texture made them perfect for creating nourishing, easily digestible soups for sick or elderly community members. The mushrooms were also used in more complex medicinal preparations. Viking healers would dry and powder wood ear mushrooms, mixing them with honey and other ingredients to create medicinal pastes that could be stored long-term. These preparations were particularly valued for treating women's health issues related to menstruation and childbirth, where blood health was considered crucial. Modern research has found that wood ear mushrooms contain compounds that may help reduce cholesterol, improve circulation, and support cardiovascular health. They're rich in iron and other minerals essential for healthy blood formation, and contain anticoagulant compounds that may help prevent blood clots. The Vikings' use of wood ear for blood-related issues shows remarkable intuitive understanding of cardiovascular health centuries before modern medicine developed similar treatments. Shiitake, lentinula edodes, the warrior's recovery. Though more associated with Asian cultures, Vikings encountered Shiitake mushrooms through their extensive Eastern trade networks and quickly adopted them as recovery medicine for wounded warriors. These meaty, flavorful mushrooms were considered powerful healing food that could speed recovery from injuries and illness. It's like having a natural recovery accelerator that also happens to be incredibly delicious and satisfying. The introduction of Shiitake to Viking culture likely occurred through the same trade routes that brought silk, spices, and other Eastern luxuries to Scandinavia. Viking merchants and warriors who traveled the river routes through Russia to Constantinople would have encountered these mushrooms and observed their use in traditional medicine. The mushrooms' obvious benefits led to their adoption and integration into Viking healing practices. Viking healers quickly developed their own preparation methods adapted to local ingredients and preferences. They would prepare shiitake in rich, nourishing broths for recovering warriors, often combining them with bone marrow, wild herbs, and other strengthening foods. These recovery meals were believed to help rebuild strength, heal internal injuries, and restore the vital energy that battle and injury had depleted. The mushrooms were particularly valued for treating what we now recognize as immune system disorders and chronic fatigue. Viking healers observed that warriors who consumed shiitake regularly seemed to recover more quickly from injuries, suffered fewer infections, and maintained better overall health during the stressful periods following battles or long voyages. Cultivation attempts were made in some Viking settlements, though with limited success due to climate and technical limitations. However, dried shiitake mushrooms became valuable trade goods, often worth their weight in silver. This high value meant they were reserved for the most serious medical cases and most important community members. Modern research shows shiitake mushrooms contain lentinin and other beta-glucans that significantly boost immune function and may help speed recovery from illness and injury. They're also rich in B vitamins, particularly B6 and B12, and minerals like selenium and zinc that are essential for healing and immune function. Studies have shown shiitake can help reduce inflammation, support liver function, and even have anti-cancer properties. The Vikings' use of shiitake as recovery medicine demonstrates their sophisticated understanding of nutrition's role in healing and their ability to integrate beneficial practices from other cultures into their own medical traditions. These 12 mushrooms represent more than just ancient food and medicine. They're proof that Vikings possessed sophisticated knowledge of natural healing that modern science is only now validating. What's remarkable is how accessible these powerful fungi remain today. Most grow wild in temperate forests, and many can be cultivated at home or purchased as supplements. Start with 1 or 2 mushrooms that address your specific health needs and discover why these ancient remedies have stood the test of time. Don't forget to subscribe for more forgotten wisdom that could transform your modern life.